So we're back doing the Dr. Stone Kingdom of Science members tier list here. Hopefully, this will go a lot better than what it did last time when I guess Wyman decided, oh, I can't have that happen today.
Yeah, yeah. And if you stuck with us for that video, well, thanks for that because it was not an easy time.
Oh
But
no, it wasn't, and hopefully, Sharon OG got the tag that I
great to
sent him
see.
in. So yeah, hiya Ben. Yeah, um, thanks for joining us.
Yep, yep.
So yeah, now gonna say it right now, like anime onlys, and I know Ben's an anime only, like, and I know he said you'll probably forget about the characters. So yeah, we're getting into major spoilers for the series moving forward, because pretty much everyone else, with the exception of maybe three on this list, but yeah, essentially everyone else here is like a major character in the series.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think you said last time, if I remember, that you're not going to remember these spoilers anyway. So if that's the
Yeah,
case, it should be okay.
yeah. So anyway, first up for tonight we have Sai. Sai, Ryusui's older brother. Well, say older brother, more like half brother.
Right. So, Sai, yeah, we met him in India. And I guess for anybody who's unaware, that's where I originate from. I was born there, actually.
Yeah.
So
So it's
it was nice.
yeah. I was going to say pretty much what you were about to say.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm just letting people who may not be aware know. And yeah, I was glad to have a character from there. Even though he, I guess, like half Indian, half Japanese, but close enough for manga standards.
Yeah.
And I really liked his character because not only did it like really boost Ryusui's character, and like help him continue to like be relevant and develop, but also we had a character who showed up like almost as like, I mean, I don't know if you could say he's as smart as Senku, but at least has like the same kind of computational brain power where he could compete with Senku like on a similar level. Not as like necessarily a rival, but at least as someone who like helps shows that Senku's not like super like special unique. Because like one of the things in the series is that every character has their own special trait that make them different. But like for the most part, most of them have like counters. We'll probably talk about them more with some of these later characters. But like with the power characters, for example, you have like multiple different types of strong characters. But with smart characters, we had like Senku and then like Zeno. Even Chelsea, who was like a doctor, like she's technically smart, but she doesn't really show it off much. So having
No.
Sai in the field was nice for that. Okay,
Yeah,
you can
yeah,
go.
and and it's actually in one of the volumes. I think it's volume like 23 when Inagaki actually gives the numbers for the five smartest characters, and Sai is on there. I'll have to let me quickly go and get the volume because I think Sai is in there. So just bear with me.
Okay, I'll keep talking while you're doing that. So yeah, with Sai, I like his character, and I would say that the only like real issue I had was that he had a bit of a sibling conflict with Ryusui due to a misunderstanding. We sort of talked about it last time, so I don't know if I really want to dig all into it again. But I did think it kind of got resolved a little quickly. Like it was just like one conversation with like Gen and Chelsea, which was a nice like conversation and a good flashback. But they really didn't have like any other conflict after that. So I did think it was a little short lived, but I still really like Sai as a character, and I love the chapter where he showed up and he just showed like the coding for like Dragon Quest. As a huge Dragon Quest fan, that was really great to see, and also like uh, talking about Dragon Quest on Controlled Chaos, they had a whole podcast about um, Akira Toriyama, who had recently passed away. So go check that out.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, and I'm back as well. I'm literally now skimming through the volumes, trying to find that panel because I know it's in one of these, and I'm gonna find it. I am definitely gonna find it. But
okay.
well, while we're finding it, what I'm going to say is, it's good that you mentioned Dragon Quest because actually that was brought up in an interview with Inagaki about like the type of games that Senku would recognize and have played, and Dragon Quest was one of them, which is why he mentions Dragon Quest like all the time throughout the series.
Yeah, and also Monster Hunter. And I kind of did like how that explanation for that was that it's not that Senku's necessarily a hardcore gamer, but Dragon Quest is such a popular enough game, and Senku's at least would be aware of like popular, like mainstream in Japan games. Because
Yeah,
like if
yeah,
most Americans, or I guess in Luke's case, British people probably wouldn't recognize Dragon Quest so easily,
no, but
but
with
in Japan they would.
yeah, but with me it would be something like, oh, even though I've not seen Dragon Ball, but that's all going to be changing. That's all going to be changing soon, and Ben knows about it because I have said that once we're through with Shield Hero and Pokemon, we will be going through the Dragon Ball franchise with him and a few others, and Songetsu on our channel has expressed interest in joining us for that, so that'll be something to look forward to. But even I, who doesn't know the fundamentals of Dragon Ball, I'm at least aware. I'm at least aware of it. So it's
Yeah.
kind of like that. But yeah, I did find the panel. So it's in volume 24. It's it's before chapter 211, and it has Chrome may have lost to Senku at a maths contest, but is he still bad at maths? If he studied underside, could he win? And this was a Mecha Senku Q&A. So in terms of maths, Chrome is A. C so in terms of maths, Senku is S, Chrome is A, Suika is A, Sinu is S, Chelsea's B, and Sai is double S. So yeah, so I guess like theoretically, this is Inagaki saying who are the 6 smartest characters in the series.
Yep.
Yeah,
And I mean, it was
because
nice to have those power rankings, even though Dr. Stone's not really one for power
yeah, even though
scaling.
it's
We
not
do
right.
have those
Yeah,
numbers.
yeah. So I would say based on these, it would be um I'm just basing it on what I'm seeing here. So I would say if we're going to go in order of like smartest out of the smartest characters in the series, it would be, and this is from least smartest by default, the smartest to the smartest. It would be Suika, then Chrome, then Chelsea, no, then Sai, then Chelsea. No, yeah, no, then Chelsea, then Sai, then Senku, and then Sinu. So I would say Sinu is still smarter than Senku just because he's older and more experienced.
Okay, I'd say that's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say that's a decent enough ranking because Suika and Chrome both don't have proper educations that kind of put them at a bit of a disadvantage
Yeah,
because they
yeah,
caught up
but
quickly.
yeah, I'm
But
just basing it on here because Suika is A in science, A in maths, A in geography, and B in language. So she's at least smart in the language than Chrome, but Chrome is S in both science and geography. So that's why I said that Suika would be the lower end, but still one of the smartest characters in the series.
okay, I just want to point out you did cut off slightly there, so hopefully it's
Ah,
not a bad omen for
yeah,
later.
yeah. Hopefully, it's not a bad omen, but yeah. But from my end, it's looking like it's all right because it's looking stable. Because I'm not seeing like, oh, losing connection at the moment.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah,
All right, so anyway, yeah, but yeah, so I think the top six is decent enough. I mean, you could make an argument that like uh Chrome like was able to invent stuff on his own, and Senku and Zeno kind of like were able to like learn and had a little advantage in that. So then there's kind of like an intelligence versus wisdom there. But I think your top six works well enough.
yeah.
So
Well,
anyway, we should probably rank Sai.
yeah. So Sai, I do like him, and I liked the flashback with him with Sinu, not Sinu, Ryusui, and finding out like how they're kind of like ostracized from the family, primarily because they were. I think it was because they were both born out of wedlock. Was that the
Yeah,
reason?
that
Yeah,
was yeah.
Yeah. So, and it makes sense, like why Ryusui would always want Sai around because it's like, hey, we have this connect. We're brothers, and we've both been ostracized by the family. Like they're still part of the family, but like I wouldn't say like they're the main like, oh, these are going to be the ones that will take over the company when they're older, kind of
Yeah, that's
people.
all the more reason I really wanted to get more of the Nanami family in the story, just because, like, who is like the heir? Like, it could be Ryusui, maybe if there's nobody else, but
I
there's
guess
also maybe.
I guess he's technically is the heir now because he probably he probably would be he probably is the heir now and he's gonna basically the
Yeah,
spare of
Ben,
the
exactly.
so basically that Ben but I guess he's kind of being like at the moment like I'm gonna bring back the person who's running the Nanami Corporation when I feel like it when I decide to bring them back.
Yeah, that would be
Yeah.
something.
But I
But
do like how Sai eventually comes to understand who Ryusui is because thanks to Chelsea and Gen's coaxing of the fact that he's because Sai as a character always viewed Ryusui as like he's just going to use me, he's going to use me all the time, and yeah, he did. But at the same time, that's kind of what people do with other people. They use them, but it's kind of the way you view it. Like, because for Ryusui, he does use people, but he's never one who's like, I'm going to force you to do this thing against your will.
mm, yeah, and I am glad they did come to understanding. I just wish it wasn't as quick as it was, but I also understand that at that point, the Doctor Stone series was really kind of streamlining it. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But ranking
Hopefully,
him is a little tricky for me just because he also comes at like the tail end of the story. So I
yeah,
really don't spend as much time with him.
I,
Because like
yeah,
I feel like if Sai was like say around earlier in the story, like let's pretend like he was in Japan for like a short while and they revived him before like when they came back from Treasure Island or something because they're like, oh, we could use a mathematician for a rocket, you know. But if they did that, I feel like Sai honestly had the potential to, if not be part of like the core six that we talked about, he would have been like an almost seventh because he was a pretty
yeah,
big deal once he did join. Unlike most of the other like most of the American characters we met, like Zeno and Stanley, they were like the stones for a while, as we'll talk about, and then and then of course the additions from Treasure Island really didn't amount to too much. So like Sai, I think would have been like the seventh possible core member of the group.
yeah.
Well,
I
I
would
guess. Well, maybe actually that would be Kaseki. I guess. Okay, whatever. He'd be in the top 10.
yeah, he would have definitely been in the top 10. And also as well, even though he says like I'm not a mathematician, I'm a programmer, like you still I know people kind of I know you've said at one point like no, you don't really need maths to be a but you still need to like technically work out like the ins and outs of just like how a program works. So you need to be I'd say at least decent at maths to like kind of understand how a program works.
I mean, sure, you like there are certain math principles in programming where you have to be like, okay, if like one or if zero, and then understanding like odds and evens, and like, but it's extremely rudimentary, and you definitely don't need it to be able to do the computational ability that Sai does have or that Senku has. Honestly, even just like what little that Chrome and Suika knows, that's more than enough to be a programmer, frankly.
Yeah. But at the same time, like they still needed someone who was fairly awesome at maths to like get the calculations for how the rocket is gonna blast off, land, and
Oh
everything.
yeah. And I mean, the original plan was that because Senku was not able to was saying we can't build like a computer, we don't have semiconductors. But then with Sai, they were able to like kind of get a way around that. I forgot exactly what they did, but they figured out a way around that.
Yeah, they figured
So
and Sai at least got to do what he loved to do whilst also benefiting the Kingdom of Science because he brought back Tetris and Pac-Man.
oh yeah, and I mean yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah,
Okay, but yeah, we should probably actually rank Sai now.
yeah. I would say Senku Cola.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could put him higher, but the problem is he just comes too late. And while he
Yeah,
was important to the rocket building, that was kind of it.
and he's kind of important to Ryusui's development as well. and also the post development for both Chroma and Suika, because they could have so easily
Oh yeah, he did
let
teach them math.
yeah, left Suika, particularly Suika's development where it left off. But no, they actually no. Even though she's had the peak of her development, she's still got stuff to actually do in the series.
Yeah, so Sai did help with a lot. And like I said, if he came a little earlier, I would have put him a
Yeah,
category higher. But
but
they
I would
didn't
say
develop like the Nanami story enough, and they also didn't, I think, even do his like arc too much well.
yeah,
So yeah, I guess that's fair.
but
I
I'd
feel a little
say
bad, but it's like I think he's definitely the highest of the
oh,
Senku Cola so
absolutely,
far.
absolutely. And now, is there any other place we're gonna put Senku other than get excited? He's the main character of the series.
Yep. So for those who watched last time, what we do for like the core six I mentioned earlier is we kind of we can't really talk about like everything they did. That's like the
Yeah,
whole story. So we'll just pick our favorite stuff.
and
So
and
I
especially
know
as
mine. So do you know
and
yours?
yeah, and especially with Senku, like there's just so this was hard. Like this was hard for me to pick because I was just like, oh, I like that. Oh, but I like that. That's just the power that Senku has as a character. And I did find an article where it does give out the difference between protagonist and main character. So you can have a protagonist, but also have a main character or a main character in the story. Like for example, if you look at, say, Lord of the Rings, where you have Frodo, who's the protagonist, but J.R.R. Tolkien considers Sam like the main character of the actual story. So you can have both. You can have a protagonist and a main character, and I'll link you the article right now. But yeah, but yeah, Senku, it's so hard. But I would say the moments that I think solidify Senku as my all-time favorite protagonist is the moment where he cries at Byakuya's grave. I've got to go with that moment.
Interesting choice.
Yeah, because of the fact that up to that point, you see Senku as like just OG put it best. You see Senku as like a stoic character, but then when he hears that story, like what Byakuya sacrificed his life for, and he's just at his grave and he's thinking like, yeah, I was knocked in stone while Byakuya was going through all of that, and you see him crying. Like the first time in the series, Senku legitimately cries because of the fact that he never got to say goodbye to Byakuya. Like he even though he's not the kind of character will come out and say like, "Oh, I love you." Byakuya knows that he's not going to do that, but you could tell like in that moment that like Senku truly did love his father.
Yep, I will agree. They have a great relationship, and I think a pretty realistic one for Senku's character. I think though, I mean, I think what won Senku over for me was like earlier in the story. It's not my favorite moment, but I'll just bring it up. Just like near the very beginning when we had like Senku say he's gonna conquer fantasy with science. Like that's how I knew this was my kind of story, and Senku was gonna be my kind of MC. Because just like that concept by itself, that science can overcome anything, was really nice, and I did like that. But my favorite moment, though, for Senku, and probably like one of my favorite moments in the series, is when we're in South America and like Stanley was coming for them and everything. Senku got in contact with the Kingdom of Science team that was still in California at the time, and and he told them it's like, okay, you guys need to activate the petrification device now and repetrify the planet. And like that panel where we saw Senku say, in order to save the world, we got to destroy ourselves. And I just love that moment where like we had a protagonist who was not just willing to sacrifice himself, but like basically everyone. Because there was a chance that, I mean, obviously things worked out because it's the shonen story, but there was a chance that they were just going to have civilization completely stuck again because like everyone got repetrified. And I remember you and I, when we were talking about that part of the story when we were doing a
Yes,
podcast together, we thought there was going to be a whole other civilization that was going to be distrustful of Senku because they heard about what he did. That did not happen. That would have been cool still.
that
But
would have been cool. But I've just
still my
realized
favorite. Okay.
I've just realized, like, oh my god, I picked Senku's crying at Byakuya's grave, but no. You see, this is the power of this character. It's like you think of one moment, but then you think, like, no, this moment. It's good that you mentioned South America because it's the panel I would say that really solidified Senku as my favorite main character of all time. Is the panel where where he's like, "Hey, can you make diamonds for me, guys?" And they're like, "We can't make diamonds. We're not smart. We don't know how to do this." And Senku says, "It doesn't matter who you are. You whether good, evil, right or wrong. Science doesn't belong to anyone. It belongs to everyone." Like that panel.
Yeah,
Like
I remember you saying that was like one of your favorites.
yeah,
Um,
that is my favorite moment from Senku. Like I would say because it just solidifies Senku as like the character who's like, I even though I am smart, even though I'm smart and I know I'm smart, anyone can do what I can do as long as you follow the rules down to the letter. Because because of the fact that that's just true for anyone. Like it doesn't matter like who you are. Like as long as you follow the rules in life and you know where you need to go, you can achieve just as much as basically the smartest people in the world.
um, so yeah, I'm sorry. I'm also reading that article you sent me. Um,
Yeah,
anyway, so with Senku, yeah, going back to like my favorite thing was the reason I really like that is because like I feel like most protagonists I know would either sacrifice themselves and or said something about the greater good. But I remember as Senku was being petrified, and Zeno was at saying, "It's like, oh, okay, you guys won this one," and Senku was just telling him, he's not interested in like world conquest or anything like that, and like how he just wants to like progress science and bring humanity back, like in a way that didn't seem like something that was like a totally selfless and need for duty, but more of just his own desire for science. And I like how Zeno said, it's like, well, that makes you even more greedy than I am. And in a way, that's kind of true because, like, in Zeno's
well,
methodologies, as we'll talk about when we get to him, like they're very questionable, but it would have been more pragmatic for the circumstances they were in. But like what Senku's trying to do is completely crazy, but still like just doing what he wants ultimately.
yeah. And in a way, like how Ryusui and Senku act about when it comes to greed, it's like, yeah, we're all kind of greedy. If you really think about it, it's just, it's just like with Senku and Ryusui, they want to use their greed for the benefit of everyone and not just themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So yeah, I guess that's Senku.
yeah.
Should we go on to Soyuz then?
Yeah, Soyuz. Soyuz is an interesting case because I don't know if you remember when uh, Red and Furman were doing Dr. Stone reviews, and when Soyuz came into the chat when he like finally spoke for the first time, and they were saying this character came completely out of nowhere. Dr. Stone did a Promised Neverland, and then everyone had to point out like, nope, he was there. Chapter 17, when Senku first arrives at the village, it has that panel of all the villagers, and Soyuz was actually nameless there. So it was the probably like one of the biggest like foreshadowed moments in the series.
Yeah, he really was, and it was a really good testament to like how much of the story was like planned out from that
Yeah,
early on.
my only gripe with it is that I wish we'd seen him in a couple of like just a few more panels of him just like with the group.
Yeah, I mean there was the comedic moment where Senku was like looked at him and he's like, "Wait, who are you?" That was pretty funny, but at the same time, like I feel like even at least the anime
Yeah,
could have
yeah, which
tried.
is with the anime, which is what I was going to pick up. This is again one of like I love you, Boichi, but you could have done what the anime does because with the anime you see Soyuz more in the background often.
Yeah, I mean I I don't know if they were just afraid that they were giving away too much of this character's important, but I don't think that was a concern
No,
since there were a lot of villagers we saw
yeah,
like just
and we
frequently in the background, and most of them are just not important. You don't like
yeah
see a lot, like even of the characters we have here, there's just like a small list of said Kingdom of Science. Not like we're gonna have like Mantle
Y-
here
Which
or
is
like
good, which is
Titan.
good, because I said, like, if Manta was on this list, he'd be going into Married to Ibarra.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but so
Um,
like Soyuz, I feel like since they had plans for him, they could have at least, yeah, like you said, used him a bit more, gave him some more speaking lines. They could have just
they
like
didn't
not
even
had him named,
they didn't
and
even have
then
to
we could
give
have.
him. I was just gonna say they didn't have to even give him speaking lines. They could have just maybe had him see, like in the Stone Wars when when they were doing like 20-second battle. They could have just easily had a panel of him just like beating up a couple of Sukasa's men.
Yeah. So yeah, they could have done more with him. And then with the other thing with Soyuz is that, once we get to Treasure Island, I feel like he played his part very well. And like basically playing the character of like the lost prince returned to his kingdom. He's basically that archetype.
He's
Uh,
basically Noah coming back. No, not Noah. Moses.
yeah, yeah, actually, yeah, that's a good one. Um, but yeah, with Soyuz, like he played his part well in Treasure Island, so I still like him. Especially like the anime, I think like also like reinforced that yeah, he was a pretty cool character when he was around. But then he's just not around for like the
Yeah,
rest of the story. He's like
yeah. He's
only built for this one arc.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, like there's not many arcs in Dot Stone. Like not as much as like One Piece or a Bleach. So there's only like I would say. I mean, they're not technically named, but I would say like there's like the Kingdom of Science arc, then the Village Origins arc, then the um Stone Wars arc. Yeah, so I think there's only like about say 8 arcs in total for the actual series. If you really like wanted to like narrow it
Yeah,
down
I
to
mean,
like the
you
bare
can argue that
bones.
there's like 4 parts to the story because those were named, I think.
Yeah, they
Uh,
were named.
I think
So
one of them's a part zero though, but then whatever. And
yeah,
then there's like an epilogue. But you're right in that sense. Like Soyuz, like proportionally was around for like a fair amount of the story, so I'll give you that.
yeah,
But I also
and
think that I he can't be ranked almost like too high because of
no,
that. So
and
that I'm
also as well potentially might be not really subtly getting it on with Amaryllis.
wait. Oh,
Yeah,
what
yeah,
what?
because I mean, it's obvious like that them two are gonna probably like get together at some point.
Probably, but we're not going to get more of that, even in like
No,
the actual chapters that now. But
no,
yeah, for Soyuz, like looking at our tier list so far, I feel like he's done a lot more than like I think the characters who are just like revival worthy. Like he wasn't
yeah,
just like a plot device or did like one thing. He did a lot for the story of Treasure Island, and like
yeah,
you said, he was
I,
a great foreshadowing tool. And
and
then
he did.
after Treasure Island, he did lead the village.
Yeah,
Uh,
and he did still have a role to play even after he left. Even after he said, "I'm going to stay on Treasure Island," he still had a role to play because of the fact that, oh yeah, we've got to take off this rocket from somewhere. How appropriate would it be to take it off from Treasure Island?
Yeah, and basically to use like his equivalent character, which I'm just gonna say it's Ruri, because not like really Ruri's dad, because he's probably not really the leader anymore. But like Ruri, who was leading the village while we were gone, and she's not on this list, but I feel like her, I would have, even though she's like was probably like my favorite female character early on in the story, and maybe even at the end, I just like blondes, like Boichi. But
Yeah,
I would
yeah,
probably have put her in revival worthy, but I think Soyuz I would have to rank higher. So I
yeah,
think he'd have to be in Senku Cola.
yeah. But yeah, I was shocked that they didn't include Ruri on this list. On the Kingdom of Science wiki. In the same way, that I was shocked that they didn't include Amaryllis, but I felt like putting Amaryllis on here because she did get the panel. Amaryllis joins the party, so that's pretty much saying like, no, she is a member of the Kingdom of Science at that point.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, sure. I feel like it's fine. We can have Amaryllis at the end. But yeah, Soyuz, like decent character, kind of short lived, but he did his role well.
Yeah, and now Stanley Snyder, the single most badass sniper in the history of shonen.
That's a pretty big take, but
But
let's see. I can't think of too many.
I would
I
love
mean, like the
I
only
would
ones I could think of is like characters from maybe World Trigger, but I know you don't read that.
no and I know people and I know maybe I should include like Risa Hawkeye from Alchemist, but from Alchemist is seinen rather than shonen.
That's also true, actually.
Yeah,
Yeah,
which
I
is
don't know.
why
I'll have to
which
think
is
about it. I feel like there's like I know in Eden Zero they had a sniper character, but he sucked. So
which is why I want a death battle between Risa Hawkeye and Stanley Snyder. That would be cool.
Stanley would probably win.
Probably, I would say Stanley will probably win just because I would say he's faster.
Yeah.
But yeah, Stanley Snyder, who everyone thought was a female when he first appeared.
Yeah, because in manga you can't really hear their
Yeah,
voices.
yeah, and also you can't deny he's wearing lipstick. Like, there's no other way. He is wearing lipstick.
Yep.
Yeah, which has led to a lot of shipping between him and Sinu. Like, and I love it. I am all for the Stanley and Sinu ship.
Yeah, a lot of people like really support that ship, and they had a nice friendship, but it was one that they did not. They gave us like a few flashbacks and like parallel Taiju and Senku, which was nice and cute, but I don't think they even spent enough time with it to like really get me invested. But and I always thought that like either a side story or something with them would have been nice, just like their time building up the American colony. But that doesn't matter. This point is Stanley was a cool character, had like great military tactics, and eventually even was like our third astronaut on the trip to
Yeah,
the moon. My biggest issue with Stanley, you can say, is like the one arc that really focused on Stanley was like an arc where he wasn't as present as I felt he should be, which was the Stanley like pursuit arc, I'll call it. And
just call
like
it
during
South America because that's what it is.
Yeah, you're right. But like very specifically that portion of South America, because I do overall love South America, but the beginning part where Stanley was just chasing them, I thought this would have been a good time to like really spend time with Stanley and his team, many of whom we've already ranked in like just Turn and Stone for Life or Revival Worthy barely. But like Stanley, I thought like could have spent more time there fleshing out his character, his relationship with Zeno, like getting more of his thoughts on the circumstance, but we didn't get like any of that,
Yeah,
and I kind of
well,
hate it.
I guess kind of because Stanley views himself as like, I'm a soldier who's there just to assist Sinu.
Yeah, which is fine in many ways. You could say that some of the characters we've ranked, like Homura, um, uh, they like exist as sort of like the female counterpart to other characters like Hyoga. So Stanley basically just did that with Xeno, which is fine, but I'm not a huge fan of doing that with characters in general. Like
Fair enough,
women
fair
get
enough.
usually the brunt of it, but
But
anyway, with Stanley, I still really like Stanley. I thought that as an antagonist, they were still like terrifying because of their capabilities as a shooter.
yeah,
And I really did
he
like how ultimately Stanley did like join up with the team. So I
yeah,
think they did a pretty good job overall with the
yeah.
character.
Stanley pretty much cemented himself as like um I would say a scarier threat than probably Sukasa and Ibarra. Because it's just the fact that he has a sniper rifle. He is he is a he is a military soldier with a sniper that literally literally was threatening to kill a child.
Yeah. I don't know if I want to say Stanley's scared than Ibarra. I mean, sure, Stanley, like, if you met them, like, Stanley has the gun. So I will give you that. But Ibarra
Yeah.
was really creepy.
Oh,
Like,
Ibarra.
I feel
Oh,
like atmospherically, like, they really tried to make Ibarra, like, just super creepy.
yeah, they
Stanley
really
was
did.
supposed to be more cool, suave,
Yeah,
and, like, kind of
and also the one who would bicker with see do like an old married couple. Like, I think one of my favorite lines from the two of them is when they're introducing themselves again, and Cena's just there like, and that guy who's puffing toxins into his lungs, that's Stanley Snyder, and Stanley's just there like, I'm only having a cigarette.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was fun.
yeah, but
Let's
I
see.
would
And
say
also,
I
I did
think
like how Stanley was also a fairly intelligent character too.
oh
Go ahead.
yeah, but I think my favorite part, my favorite moment for Stanley is when the second worldwide petrification is happening, and he's debating like what to do. Like, should he shoot the revival food, or should he let them win? And ultimately, he lets them win. Like, he literally is like, I'm gonna embrace this petrification, but I'm gonna have a smoke while I have it.
Mm. So, yeah, ranking Stanley. I mean,
I would say because of the fact that Sinu is his. I love that they don't explicitly come out and say this like, oh, we are a couple, but it's fairly obvious. Like Boichi and Inagaki made it fairly obvious like these two are a legitimate couple. But, and I think with Stanley, Sinu wouldn't have it any other way other than this is elegant.
just because of the name. Yeah, I mean, let's see. Looking at our characters, even though Stanley was also introduced like decently later in the story, I think he had like a good impact. But I think the negatives of not really digging into his character enough does like kind of push him down a bit. So sure, that's fine
Yeah.
because I feel like he definitely outranks most of the Cola
Yeah.
team by itself. So
The ones in Seku Cola, like, well, he had his own arc when he was the antagonist, so I feel like
true.
that's appropriate.
Yeah, I guess you can say that's true. Okay, yeah, fair enough. I mean, I can't put him in Get Excited, but yeah,
No,
Elegant's fine.
but there is one character that we can put in Get Excited. Suika.
Yeah, good.
Is there really any? I mean, Suika's my favorite character in the series, so there is no way at all. But do I put her higher than Senku? Like
I
this
don't really care. You can pick.
this is tricky because you have to really think about this with Suika. Like,
I
if
mean,
she
have
would,
we really been like arranging like the characters like in order?
no, we
I thought
haven't.
you were just putting them.
No, we haven't. But
Because like I would have put like because like I said for the get excited characters,
I'm
I think for me I told you I put like Kohaku like near the end of that, even though she
okay.
is definitely top tier. But you don't also have to like arrange it because
Yeah,
I
all right.
haven't really been paying attention.
Fair,
So
fair enough, fair enough. But yeah, with Suika, it is very interesting because we talk about like characters in a series. Like, if you took them out, like, would the series be impacted as much as it did? And in the case of Suika, I would say 100% yes, it would. If you took her out of the series, for one key reason, she is the only reason I would say Ruri even survives the Kingdom of Science arc, because without Suika, Senku wouldn't have gotten the villagers on his side in the first place.
yeah, I mean that's fair. That I think he might have been able to get the food, but you're right. Suika did play an important part there.
Yeah. Um. So yeah, and also as well, gotta say it because I did say like We Are Going to the Moon was my favorite moment for a long time, but after rereading it and going back and just looking at how it impacts not only the story but also Suika as a character from that point on, it's gotta be her time skip. Like, I've got to say that is my favorite moment in the series. And um, reading that moment, just seeing how much Senku's lessons in science really helped her, and how she was able to pretty much do everything that Senku did. Obviously, it took her time, and I did actually write it down like the actual, because it's still a little bit confused about when Suika actually revived, but I believe I did. Yeah, I did tag you and put it down because it would be reasonable to say that she revived a year after after the Second Worldwide petrification.
A year?
Yeah, because if you go, I did tag you in there. It was above the where I took the picture of my cat and say Gem loves Doctor Stone. I did tag you, so I did
Yeah, I remember
the
you tagged me in something.
Yeah, I did. Because it
Oh, right,
says,
in the
yeah,
Discord server. I was looking at
yeah, in
Matt's
the
face.
Discord
That's why.
server. Yeah. So we
Okay.
don't know exactly when Suika was revived in South America.
Yeah, which I mean, it really only bothered us because yeah, okay. I know you did this and listed a bunch of numbers. I wasn't really listing all of it, but basically, yeah, I got the point that she was basically 18 by the end.
Okay, fair enough.
But okay, cool. You did the math. And yeah, it wasn't super clear. I mean, I'm not even like entirely sure. I think you just looked up like the ages they listed and just did backwards math, which is fair.
Yeah, yeah, I did.
Because like
Because
Suika's age, like the way like Boichi draws children, it's kind of hard to tell because Chelsea's also really short.
yes,
And
yes,
Mirai is she's like mentally younger than she physically is because of coma. So there it gets complicated.
it does. It really
But
does.
Suika, favorite moment. So like I think you picked a good one. And definitely within series that was probably like her best.
Yeah,
I'd
and
say the epilogue though, like when she invented a space elevator. As someone who
yes, that was.
when I
Oh my
was
god, that was so good because it's literally that it literally brings it full circle with her character because she basically at that moment was like how Chrome was at the beginning of the series, where it's like, of course you know what it is.
yeah, that was nice. And also, as someone who, when I was, well, younger, I guess Suika's age, like within story, like I would look up the kind of stuff myself, like space elevators and such. And I thought this is a cool theoretical technology. And I really liked when people like used it in science fiction. And then for Suika to come up with that on her own and then eventually like help plan building it, that was really nice. I thought that was like a great
Yeah,
like end to her, like her little character arc.
yeah, and even though I kind of wish like in the final chapter of the epilogue sweet sequel series she got a little bit more, I felt like okay, yeah, she had her big moment in that chapter beforehand.
Yeah, and I think that's more than enough. Suika probably has like one of the best character arcs within the story. Like Chrome's
I
like the next closest, but yeah.
I 100% agree. Like if we're talking about like um probably one of the best character arcs in Shonen Jump history, period, for
Okay,
Suika.
I'm not
I,
gonna go that high, but
okay, fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. Don't go that high. Don't. I'm only doing it because she's my favorite character, so
that's fair.
I'm gonna be a little bit biased. But yeah, but okay, for kid characters, I would say it's one of the best character arcs.
Sure, it's probably at least up there. I mean, because the only other like kid characters that I really like were in Hunter x Hunter. Like Killua is like amazing. I love his character arc, and
Yeah,
Golan's is pretty good too. But you know, like that's like a masterpiece of
yeah,
manga, so
and
it's almost
and
unfair.
and they could have so easily made Suika like,
And then
oh,
Gohan also had like a pretty good arc, but I know you didn't watch Dragon Ball either.
yeah,
So
but I'll be watching it, so I'll be able to judge soon. But yeah, with Suika, what I feel like makes her character so good is that they could have so easily made her just like, oh, I'm the cutesy little character meant here to be the mascot, not really meant to be important. But no, they actually gave her a proper role to play in the story.
yep, very important role too.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that was
I'm
nice.
pretty much like a lot of people like to put like Kohaku as like Senku's right hand, with Chrome as his left hand. But I would honestly put Suika more in like Senku's right hand with Chrome because they're technically like Senku's pupils, with Senku being their mentor.
I mean, it depends what you mean by left hand and right hand, because like if you mean it in terms of like, because like you said, Senku or it's like Chrome and Suika, like they basically were like his students more so than like the people he turned to until like later in the story, of course. But like earlier in the story, it was more like Kohaku and Gen, I would say.
Yeah, fair enough, fair enough. I'd say they all four of them are like equal in terms of like importance to Senku, essentially.
I mean, it's a story for sure.
Yeah, but
Senku, I guess. I mean, like, okay. I mean, that depends if you mean like for the purposes of building Kingdom Science. Because if you want me to ask who the most important character is to Senku, that's going to be the next character we're going to talk about.
oh, of course, yeah. But one last thing I want to say about Suika before we move on to Taiju is that it's funny how you mentioned like Kohaku's role in the story kind of fizzles out, even though she's technically meant to be the female main character. But I would
Female
argue
heroine. You just
female
need to
heroine.
say.
But I would
Wait,
argue
why did I
that
say female heroine? That's redundant. Sorry.
yeah,
Continue.
but I would argue that Suika more fits that role because of the fact that she's learning more from Senku. She has, she would has a better character arc than Kohaku, in my opinion.
Oh, well,
So
I mean, definitely, easily. Kaka barely has one, but no, the heroines usually more just means like the female character that the main character is most likely to end up with more than like that. And there, but you're right from a narrative perspective. Usually, a heroine also has more their own story that goes alongside the hero. And in that sense, if you had to pick a female character, it would be Suika. So, yeah, I guess depends on your
y-
definitions. I
yeah,
wouldn't say that only because heroines are most typically associated with some kind of romantic end game, and I'm not doing that this weekend.
well. Not all the time. I mean,
True, but a
there's
lot of
very
the time, that's just why.
but a lot of the time. But I would say, even though I like Kohaku, she's in my top five for a reason. I would say, in terms of like who deserves the primary female main character role, I would say it's Suika.
Sure, I feel
Yeah,
like we need a different word though,
yeah.
but let's
Uh,
not worry about that right now.
yeah, let's not worry about that.
Take
For
it easy.
now, let's just move on to Taiju, who is I love the fact I love what I love most about Taiju is like just the arguments that people have of like who is Senku's best friend. Well, it's obviously Chrome. It's obviously Gen. It's obviously Ryusui. No, it's Taiju.
Ah, man. Weirdly enough, Taiju's probably biggest moment. Um, well, I mean, he has had like a lot of small moments, like when they were in the Stone
Yeah,
Wars,
I would
or
say
like,
Taiju is a character that you don't really look at him for big moments, you look at him for more of the smaller moments.
yeah. And originally, he was positioned and even designed as like a main character before the story switched over, which I think is in general fairly clever, like a good
Y-
way for the
yeah,
story to be
but
like to like
but
ease in like shonen fans into a new type of story. You know, go ahead.
yeah, but if you actually look at like how how particularly how the Fizz cover for Dot Stone is structured and how like most of like the Shonen Jump magazine covers are depicted, particularly the first one for Dot Stone, Senku is usually at the front and center. So we all should have seen like, oh no, it's not meant to be Taiju, Senku's meant to be the main character.
Hmm. But anyway, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, well, I did want to add that like Boichi in like one art video he does, which he does on like a YouTube, he's re-uploading stuff. He did mention that even he thought like Taiji was going to be the main character when designing him, because he was, I guess, supposed to like take a big role, of course, in the first chapter. But anyway, the first point I want to say was like Taiju's like big moment in the series that I particularly remember is the when he was playing the role of Doctor Taiju and trying to fool
Yes,
Xena. That
yes,
was
that
hilarious.
that was hilarious. But I will say my actually, I think I have two favorite moments from Taiju. It's the one where he becomes Farmer Taiju.
Oh
um,
yeah, I love that moment where he talked about like how his parents were like gone, and
yeah,
so he just wants to help everyone else's family unite. That was a great moment for
yeah,
sure.
that was a great moment, and he kind of has a new family in the sense of like oh, that's something I want to know. Like, did was Senku the one that basically helped Taiju out of his slump when his parents died?
You know, they didn't really go into that, so it's a good question. I know that there was a Doctor Stone fan that you and I were mutuals with online a while ago. I want to say her name was like Chelsea or Chess or
Yeah, it
something.
was. Yeah, it was. I think she's just been too busy with her own
Yeah, which
life
is
at the
fine.
moment. Yeah,
And so with she really enjoyed the headcanon that Taiju and Senku were basically like siblings because like Taiju, you know, didn't really have any parents to rely on. And so him like staying with Senku and Byakuya like had like a sort of sibling relationship. And I did kind of like that headcanon. So I kind of adapted it into my own personally. So yeah, I
Yeah,
like to think that Byakuya and Senku like really was the surrogate family for him. And then of course when he marries Yuzuriya, that
yeah,
family
yeah.
expanded.
And he gets a mother-in-law and father-in-law because usually his parents are revived at that point.
Yep, which we
Yeah,
didn't really get to meet.
yeah.
But yeah.
But I will say one of my other favorite moments from Taiju is okay, Taiju we all accept is a meathead, but I will say this: he at least has some competence when it comes down to it. Particularly when Senku, it's in the first chapter, first two chapters or so, when Senku's trying to be like, "Oh, I need to get wine for the revive fluid," and Taiju's just there being like, "Well, what about grapes? Wine comes from grapes. Will that work?"
Yeah, and that was nice because like I think they did one of the negatives with Taiju is like as he was being phased out of the story, when they split apart from him and Senku. I'm not sure if that's due to like reader dissatisfaction or something, but they kind of had to like almost increase how stupid he is just to make like Senku and the others seem smarter, which I wasn't like super big on, but he is a hilarious character all the same, so I didn't
Yeah,
mind too
yeah,
much.
yeah. And I will say one of my other favorite moments from Taiju is whenever they're about to revive someone, and I think even his dub voice actor even said that this is one of his favorite moments as well. Uh, when they're about to revive someone, Taiju's there. Hold on, Senku, they're naked, and he just pokes Senku's eyes out.
Hmm. Yeah, that was pretty funny,
Yeah,
especially because they repeated the gag several times.
yeah,
I
they
mean,
repeated
Arai was
so.
also there to
Yeah,
revive him and did it
yeah.
again. It was
And
great.
I don't think, and Seiko's just like, it doesn't matter, we're in the stone world.
Yeah, which is just such a great way to show both those characters and their principles.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Well,
I guess we
yeah.
should probably rank Taiju.
Um,
Oh yeah, I did
and
want to say Taiju and Yuzuria's relationship was really nice, but maybe I'll talk more about that with Yuzuria.
yeah, we'll talk more about that with Yuzuria, but yeah, and also with Taiju going away and the gag that we had with Doraron, where is Chio in reference to where's Taiju? Where's Taiju?
Yeah, because it was basically the same kind of thing. But I think Taiju was, of course, like more incorporated to the story
Yeah,
later.
Taiju had more of a
Not
bigger
as
role.
enough for me personally, because I still really feel like the original trio of Senku, Taiju, and Yuzuriya, like I feel like should have more time together since they've been like lifelong friends.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
that's my personal opinion.
But
Um,
anyway,
so
Taiju, where? Oh, you know what? I'm gonna be fair. I'm gonna be fair to him, and I know probably Red and David and Furman will probably hate me for this, but I'll put him
did
in.
you
This
just
is
dead name Vex?
oh, sorry, Vex.
It's fine. Keep going.
Yeah, Vex. I apologize immensely for that.
I don't even think he's watching, but okay.
Yeah, but I apologize. Ignore what I just said. Then, Red, Vex, and Furman are probably gonna hate me for this, but I'm gonna put Taiju in. This is elegant.
Yeah, I mean, as like one of my personal favorites, I wish I could put him in the highest tier, but he really just isn't as important later on. Like his big thing is the fact that he has unlimited stamina, and I'm glad they use him, but you can't realistically put him much higher.
No,
I
no.
will say though, of all these characters in Elegant, well, probably Stanley is probably the most important, but Taiju's like my favorite of those characters.
Okay, so I'll put him at the front.
Okay, well
There we
that's
go.
fine. We're not even doing that.
I'll put him at the front since he's your favorite.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. But anyway, now we have the first big bad with Sukasa.
Mhm.
Yeah. And Sukasa is probably one of the more interesting characters in the series because of the fact that um he kind of does have a point about his principles, even though he's going about it in kind of a hypocritical way.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with like that's what a friend of mine also like really said. Yeah, and why he had like trouble with Sukasa, where like it felt like the things he was saying and doing, like if if even he thought about it a bit more, seems stupid. But I think that what won him over, and I think an underappreciated moment with Tsukasa is like when he says um, that the amount of resources that they have in the new world is very limited, and conflict is very likely to rise up. And so he kind of just took on the burden of being the one to decide like what the world is going to be like. And I think that was nice. Although ultimately Sukasa was designed with a very simple um, motivation of like a world with science is going to like bring back all the corruption with it, which again, if you dissect it enough, especially within this type of story, it's easy to fall apart. But I think it was still a motivation that
Yeah,
a lot of people could get behind, in terms of the fact that okay, he's a villain, that but you have understandable motives. I've seen some people call him like sort of an anti-villain, where it's
I
like a
would
villain
say
who sees themselves as sort of like a hero type figure.
I would say that is pretty accurate because he's not evil. Like Sukasa is not evil. He's just
Right.
so well endowed with his principles that he can't. I feel like it blinds him at times, but I wouldn't say like he's out there to like I'm gonna kill people for the sake of killing them. And I mean, he even says himself like he's not a yeah, misguided. Sukasa is a very misguided character, and he does say to Chrome when he has Chrome over the ledge, like he's not against science as a concept. He just doesn't want it to be like tainted by war and corruption.
Yep. And I one other thing I'll say with Tsukasa is I first I wasn't too sure how I felt about Mirai being like kind of what brings him around. But you know, when I rewatched it with the anime,
Yeah,
I thought to myself, like, okay, well, besides that, I think Hyoga kind of representing sort of an extreme of his own philosophy, which was like more in the realms of eugenics, which we probably talked about with when we got to Hyoga. Uh, Sukasa, I guess, probably just saw that his methodology is just like not going to work. And
yeah,
I do though kind of wish that when Ryusui came back, even though like Ryusui gave a whole speech about how money is like doesn't need to be evil, and like Tsukasa kind of just accepted it. I kind of wish there was a little bit more of a pushback with what
yeah,
Tsukasa was saying, but I'm not too bothered by it because once we met Zeno, like it fixed two problems. Like one, it kind of showed that Tsukasa had a point that like unregulated science can in fact be like very evil. And two, Tsukasa was so overpowered, like in terms of how strong he is. He can even like outfight most military people in hand-to-hand combat. But like once you bring back guns, it also kind of like prevented him from being like OP as a
yeah,
character.
yeah.
And then his
Because
final arc with like Kohaku, which we probably talked about last time, was like so nice. He would just really like, recognized Kohaku as like the best to go to space. It's great.
yeah, but also as well, going back to the thing with his sister, it kind of because he does explain this to Senku early on in the story, like telling the story of the girl who liked the Little Mermaid and her brother, and that is, I would say, probably my favorite bit of foreshadowing in the series, more so than some of the others, like with Senku's relationship with the actual village and how Ruri actually knows who Senku is. Because you do when it's revealed like oh 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 the sister Miyaya was the girl who was a fan of the Little Mermaid. Like it all clicks with Sukasa then, like why he has this why he has this philosophy because of the fact that that person where he was collecting the seashells. Because uh, I don't know, can you actually own a beach?
Yeah.
Oh, you can.
I mean, yeah. You, but beaches, there are private beaches that are just like owned by
Yeah,
places.
but
And like Sukasa said in the story, like it realistically, every piece of land that exists is owned by somebody and or a larger corporation or the government at the very least for preservation.
yeah. So that's what I liked most about like Sukasa. Just like, okay, yeah, um, yeah. Even though he has this like blind hatred at the beginning for like people who are high in the top. You kind of see what drove him to that, point when you get to that story about like bringing back his sister, and that would and I'm glad that that was the thing that like, okay, it's a ceasefire because of the fact that you are promising me to bring back my sister with science, and yeah, Senku kept his word.
Yep. And also, uh, we also learned that his parent, whoever they were, was like a very unreliable adult, and Tsukasa had to pay for all the medical bills themselves. So it also makes sense that he has like a very skewed perception on like adults and like not trusting them. I will say that it would have been pretty easy to make Tsukasa evil just because he's like reviving like young impressionable people who kind
Yeah,
of like, because he was a celebrity back in the modern times, who easily like won over people with his charisma. And you could have made someone like that like just like the worst kind of person trying to
oh, absolutely.
manipulate a mold,
Oh,
but
oh,
he really wasn't.
no, I do say that about the Little Mermaid, but no, my favorite bit of foreshadowing with Tsukasa is the foreshadowing that happens with Ibara, because literally when when they're planning to revive Tsukasa, they say, "What if it turns out that this guy is an evil tyrant that wants to control everything?" And who do we get later? An evil tyrant who controls everything.
Yeah, and I mean, I think they had more specific language because you could say a tyrant in and of itself is not foreshadowing, but they did talk about like a very well depraved and sex craved tyrant,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is what Ibara is.
If that wasn't like foreshadowing Ibarra, then I don't know what would have been.
Yeah,
But
and we do know Treasure Island was planned ahead with Soyu's existence, so
yeah,
it's very nice stuff when you
yeah.
reread Doctor
Um,
Stone. But
but yeah, I would say my favorite moment with Sukasa is oh, there's two, but they're both relevant but they're both relevant because they both are kind of like imparts to each other. It's when Sukasa is being frozen by Senko, and they're just having that chat as Sukasa is going into the freezer. Yeah,
yeah, that was
but
a great moment.
yeah,
I loved how they did the anime.
and also as well with Senku, even after Tsukasa is dead in frozen carbonite, he just keeps talking to himself, and yeah, and you see him legitimately like bawling his eyes out. And like you said, I do like the song that they played in the anime, where it's like, if we could have met in a different time, would we have been best friends? And I do feel like if in different circumstances, Senku and Tsukasa could have been well, they do become friends, but like in the past, if they had met under different circumstances, I do generally believe they would have become quite close friends.
Yeah, I mean, they did show that in like a sort of fake flashback. That was really nice.
Yeah, but
Which
also
I,
my other favorite moment is after Tsukasa gets revived. I love that we ended season 2 with losing Tsukasa, and we ended season 3 with him bringing him back. I love that. That was the point where they left off the anime. But it's the moment when Tsukasa is brought back, and he's just like, "Yeah, what's the situation?" And everyone's just there like, "Wow, he never loses his cool." And Senku's just there like, "We're invading the moon," and literally you just get the most like, what the actual fuck face from Tsukasa.
yeah, that was pretty funny. I will say though, I just remembered when you were talking about that speech Senku and Tsukasa had, they kind of referenced some of their time when it was just him, Senku, and Taiju together. And you know, when they were talking about that, I'm like, man, I wish we had like some more of that, even though it really wasn't
Yeah,
necessary. But
yeah, but I feel like that's kind of like with Inagaki's like um crazy stance of like, I've got to fit every part of this series that I want to fit in 5 years. Because
mhm.
anybody who's read Doctor Stone knows that they are obsessed with the number 5.
And also, I just noticed that Ben like did post that misguided, and yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I did mention that.
oh okay.
I did
I might
mention
have
that.
spaced
Like,
out during that time.
yeah, yeah,
Because I was
like
also
Tsukasa.
I was still like skimming through that article you sent. It was a
Oh,
pretty
sorry.
good one, but I will say I think based on their definitions, like the beginning part of Dr. Stone has Taiju as like the main character who's the perspective.
Fair
But
enough.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
how I would interpret it based on that.
Okay.
But I
Fair enough. Fair enough. But yeah, I think we should rank Tsukasa, and Oh, this is tough. This is tough because on one hand, I want to put him in get excited, but on the other hand, it's like, oh, but then he's like such an important part for the story, part of the story for like the first quarter of it. Mm,
Yeah, because he just frozen during like Treasure Island. And then when he's on the boat, he doesn't really do all that much. So I understand like the conflict. So I think we can probably put him like next to Hyoga just because like again they didn't really use Sukasa as well. And like for example, if they didn't bring Sai into the story, I feel like even Ryusui may have potentially been like a tier lower, honestly.
yeah,
So
yeah,
the Sukasa didn't really get that. I will say one other moment I just remembered with him. You can still put him in this delegate is like when he and Senku talked about the Medusa being like an immortality device. We talked about it last time, but it just the fact that it was those two who had that conversation was really nice.
yeah, yeah. And then Chrome has to come in and be like, "Wow, this is awesome."
Yep.
Or no, 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 I've got to do it in the Chrome way. This is bad.
Okay. Next character.
Next character is Ukio.
Oh boy,
Uh,
he's a huge fan favorite, but and he was one of the 12 wise generals, which
the
I don't think
five
is a
wise
label that they even used in the anime.
they do use like generals. They just don't use wise generals.
Yeah, I kind of hate that because it was just such a fun tagline that the community used, and Ukyo was part of that. But I mean, in reality, it kind of overinflated his role a little bit in
Yeah,
our minds.
yeah, it kind of does. And I like Ukio's character. I like his design. I like the fact that he's an archer, and I like his passive aggressiveness throughout the story.
Yeah,
And
and he's like the most like really down to earth character, like in the early parts, um, because like he like his experience, like I guess his own fair share of tragedies as a sonar man and part of the whatever I guess the Japanese Defense Force, I think, uh, and that was like a great story, and especially like the way that he was introduced. Like the first time we see him is actually like when Gen gets back
yeah,
from
and
his
he's
spy, and he just looks terrifying. And then
yeah, he
later,
does, and you
when
think
Chrome was like almost like gonna die, like Ukyo saves him by doing some trickery, and so you can see he's very manipulative as well. But then we find out he's just like a good-hearted dude.
yeah, but and yeah, he does play an important role because he's the one that's like yeah, that like actually picks up the frequency for the Y man the first time. So he is important in that sense.
Yeah, I do also like how he Senku just had that conversation in English, and all the Japanese kids are like, "What
Yeah.
is
Oh,
happening?"
oh yeah, and my favorite and I was curious like how they were going to do that in the English dub, but they make it so that Ukyo is speaking softly.
Yeah, which I mean is fair, I
Yeah,
guess.
it's fair. I mean, you really can't get around that with like a character supposedly having a different like different language barrier, but when they're all speaking English, you can't.
Yeah, I mean
It's just
even
what.
the Medusa activation, they never like even brought up the fact that they're using English.
No, no, they didn't. No, I think they did in the anime. I think they did. I think they
No,
it
I
does.
mean in the dub. I'm talking about the
Oh,
dub.
oh, in the dub. No, they don't. Um, because it wouldn't make sense for the dub.
Right, exactly. It's the
Um,
same thing.
yeah.
It's kind of one of the issues.
But I will say my favorite Ukyo moment is in that scene where he's hearing Gen imitate Lillian, and he's in English says like, "There's no vibration in the voice, which makes it harder for you to imitate Gen."
Yeah. Which I mean, again, that was like a great moment. But with Ukio, I his pacifist attitude I think was important to the story just because it really helped establish the
Yeah,
principles of why the characters wouldn't go to so crazier lengths. Just because of his moral compass makes sense from where he came from. And I'm glad that he was around for the story, but at the same time, and he plays an important role as a sonar man, but he doesn't do much else. So
And I mean, he is one of the drivers for when there's South America.
Oh yeah, yeah, that is true as well. Because he is an adult and he could drive.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Well, he'd have to be if he was working. If he was
as the
working
sonar man, yeah.
as the Soda Man. Yeah.
So the thing is, this is tough because I mean I can't put him in the highest tier, obviously, with like the other generals because they're like all there. I think.
Yeah.
Do we have all the
So
generals up there?
yeah. What? So we have Senku Chrome again. Yeah, we do. So
Yeah.
and unfortunately, Ukio. And do we put him? Do we
I
put him in
also
the?
will at least admit he. I want to mention that when they were trying to figure out like building a stealth ship in South America, he played a role in that. That was pretty neat.
Yeah. Oh, and also, do you remember like when when they were seen in the Medusa way just before Gen and Yo got petrified? You just see Ukio's face in darkness. Do you remember like people thinking that it might have been him that activated it?
No, I actually didn't.
All right. So because that was my impression. Like you see, you see him closing the door. Like he's the last person to close the door before it starts
Oh
activating
wait,
out
yeah,
of the
now I
blue.
remember.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
remember now.
yeah, yeah. And you just see like just his eyes in darkness. So it's like, wait, are they trying to make it out so that Ukio was the one that did that?
Man, that was great.
That would have
But
been a twist in himself. Like the most passive aggressive guy was the villain the whole time.
I'm okay. I gotta ask you something. When you're saying passive aggressive, what do you mean?
Uh, like just I'm I don't know if I'm saying it the correct way, but
Because
passive
passive,
is
I'll agree, but like
passive. Yeah,
passive,
passive aggressive meaning. Um, passive aggressive behavior is a pattern of indirectly expressing negative feelings instead of openly addressing them. I would say he does have that in some cases, but no, I'm meaning more passive nature.
yeah, that I agree with. Okay, because passive aggressive it usually means that someone who's like always sarcastic or backhand compliments. Basically, they're usually like upset about stuff, but they don't like direct confrontation. Um,
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I just wanted to make sure I understood what you were talking about. Because at first I was thinking maybe Ukio did make some passive aggressive jokes that I don't remember, but yeah, I didn't. But then when you said the thing with the Y man, him like working with the Y man being passive aggressive, I'm like, wait, what? So,
Yeah,
uh,
sorry. It was
so
just me misinterpreting it.
so even though I think it might just be the overinflated status of his story in my mind. I still kind of want to at least put him in the second tier. Like this is elegant, just
Ye-
because even though Cola would probably still work for him, because he's done almost about as much as some of these characters. I don't know. I like Ukio's character enough that I
Yeah,
feel
I
like
just like his character. Like he's just cool. He's the cool character.
yeah, he is a cool character. And I mean, to be fair, he does like have he does still technically have that role as the wise commander. So it'd be kind of weird to put him
Yeah,
as
yeah,
just
it
you
would.
get a cola.
Yeah. Um yeah, it'd be kind of weird to put him in the same category as Ginru when I think it was OG who made the joke of like imagine if Ginru was the one on the boat and therefore he was a wise commander.
I don't remember what you're making that joke, but that is funny. Yeah, because like most of these other characters, except for Sai, like I would say he doesn't rank up, and Sai I only put there just because he came really, really late. And Ukio was there since like Stone Wars, or not
Yeah.
even Stone Wars, because we saw him with the
No,
in
it
season
was
one.
like it was like I would say in the like 40s, like chapter 40s area.
Yeah, yeah. So I feel like he's there like too early and did too much stuff to be just there. Okay, yeah, you can
Yeah.
move on.
And now we can move on to Dr. Sino Houston Wingfield. I love that name. It's like the most random of random names for him.
Well, I mean, it makes sense. Houston being like where rocketry is usually. Like, if you ever
Y-
heard Houston, we have a problem. That's where
yeah,
it's from.
I honestly was wait I honestly it would have been cringy. It would have been cringy, but I was honestly waiting for that moment when they made that joke and you just cut to see you being like, what? And then everyone's just like, what do you mean what? You said Houston. Yeah, it's my middle name.
That would have been so
I
riveting.
want to know. I honestly want to know the backstory with Sinu and his parents. Like, how did they come up with that name? Like, okay,
I
well,
mean, for
we
me, my middle name just is my dad's name, so I just assume Zeno's father is named Houston.
yeah. My middle names are my one of my middle names is my granddad's first name, and one of my other middle names is my other granddad's middle name. So
Yeah, so you usually get it from like a parental, like a
yeah,
relative.
yeah. So was his father or grandfather born in Houston, and he was called Houston?
I just assume that's the name because there are people named, I think, Houston. I think that is like a name.
Really?
I mean, you can Google it if you
Okay,
want.
I am gonna Google it. But yeah,
Yeah, you do that. I'll talk about it.
Sinu, Sinu, I do love. He's like one of my favorite. He is a fan favorite character for a reason.
Yeah, he basically is kind of represents a dark part of Senku. He also served as a mentor role, as we learned, and I think that also helped really flesh out Senku's story further.
Oh,
Additionally, like, yeah, you found people named Houston,
yeah,
huh?
yeah. It's a boy's name of English, Scottish, and Irish origin. Oh my god, oh my god, I really could have had that as a middle name because I've got English, Scottish, and Irish origins.
Yeah, you could have. But anyway, yeah, so Xenu, he, I mean, like his name also, of course, represents the fact that like his like xeno as in like xenophobic as in like he's like very wary of outsiders and his entire idea of the American colonies is to kind of rule the world like through scientific superiority. And I kind of like how in many ways like there's protagonists who believe like, you know, rule through strength or power, but Xeno is basically that but with science. And I think that was like a really cool archetype. And like I was saying earlier in our stream, his philosophy of like being like a one person like ruler dictator kind of makes sense in a world where there's not much of infrastructure. And I also like to point out like as part of like sympathy points for Xenu and like why he is like so against American bureaucracy and the government is also because he's a NASA scientist who was working under the Trump administration. And, you know, I can say that that would definitely drive someone to
Ye-
become an evil villain.
Yes, yes, it would. Oh my god, that would have been because yeah, it was Carl of the anime, but Trump does exist in the Doctor Stone universe, which makes
Mm-hmm.
sense because it's our world, just with a magical petrification beam. So yeah, they got petrified during the Trump days.
Yep, it was. And so I kind of understand like why Zeno became the way he is. And he never made a point to hide it, even from his colleagues,
Yeah,
which
because they
actually will take me to like probably one of my favorite moments with Zeno, which is like when he and Senku were listening to Byakuya's like final words, and he was reflecting on like his time with Byakuya. And it's like, you know, Zeno is like, I mean, he's kind of creepy and he has like very troublesome ways of thinking, but he's like a good guy underneath all that.
yeah,
And he did
he
care about
is.
his colleagues at least.
Yeah, and he did. Yeah, his colleagues, and especially Stanley. He cares a lot about Stanley.
Oh, I forgot to say one thing with Stanley. Like I remember at one point, like Stanley was basically just willing to like sacrifice Luna, and that I'll admit that probably did take away some points for me for him. It's like how
Fair
could you
enough.
do that to Luna? I mean, I get
Yeah,
she's not very useful, but also Luna is like
yeah.
adorable.
But yeah, yeah. The fact I also love the fact that with Sinu and Stanley, like if you go back and look at how they're first petrified together, literally Stanley's hand is caressing Sinu's face.
Hmm. And I mean, I think he is arguably one of the best, if not the best, antagonists like within the story, both thematically and just in terms of like his presence. I think Inagaki and Boichi had so much fun
Oh,
with Xeno's character.
they must have had so much fun on with Sinu and to a lesser extent Stanley because I think like originally Inagaki wanted Stanley to be like older, but Boichi made him like the hottest guy he could probably think of.
Yeah, okay. I guess we should bring this up too. The weird thing with Zeno is, I think age-wise, they kind of made him like way too young
Yeah,
for the
cause
story.
yeah,
He's like
cause
35 or something.
yeah, he's 29. No, he's 29 because
Oh, really?
he was born in 1990 he was born in 1993.
Yeah, which is like a year before I was born, and that's
Yeah,
kind of
and, that,
ridiculous
and
for a
it's
top
and
NASA
it's two.
scientist.
Yeah, but him and Stanley are the same age. It's just
Right.
Stanley is literally 1 month older than Xenu because he's
Yeah,
September 1st and Xenu's October 1st.
which makes sense. But yeah, with like having like a top NASA scientist, like, and again in like 2017, that just like doesn't make any sense. Like, because like in 2017, I'm pretty sure I was in like college or something.
I
So
guess I guess I guess Xenu was
he
just a
probably
nat.
skipped some grades and
Yeah,
stuff.
he probably just skipped some grades because I think he was just like a
But then
natural
Stanley
prodigy.
would also, I mean, he was in the military, so you could probably not worry about that. So it's
Yeah,
fine.
because it could be argued that Stanley joined the military when he was 18.
Sure, but then that also means that he rose in the ranks pretty quickly too.
He probably could have done because of just well, I mean, his skills are unprecedented.
I guess so. So I mean, I personally think they should have made them older because it's just like a lot of bit like, okay, I guess they're just that good. But
Yeah.
I don't think
Oh,
they should
oh
have done that.
maybe, but I'll just say one other thing I thought was funny about Stanley, and I think we mentioned this with Matsukaze and Ginru last time, was after Ginru spilled the beans about where Senku was going. You see Stanley literally lighting his cigarette with the barrel of his gun.
Oh yeah, that was awesome. Oh man. But yeah, this with Zeno. I mean, I'm pretty sure you're gonna want to like put him next to Stanley in the category of among his phrase, but I really think he's a top tier
I
character.
think he's a top tier. I do think he's a top tier. Well, he's got to
Okay.
be a top. He's got to be a top his catchphrase because he would be the most elegant out of all of them.
Okay.
Yeah,
I guess
but
that's a good point.
you wanna know what's crazy about Xenu is that if the first image that you see of him and you look at him, yeah, that looks eerily like Senku. You cannot deny that.
I'll check.
Yeah, I'll show you like what I mean. Like if you like really look at it, I'll post it into Discord. It's Discord. But yeah,
Okay.
looking at image, like that is clearly looks eerily like Senku.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that was done on purpose,
Yeah,
like design wise. And I think a
but
lot of us were suspecting he might have been Senku's biological dad or something at the
yeah,
time
but
because of it.
it's
It's not.
impossible now. Although he might be related to Senku in some way, just like probably like a distant cousin.
I mean, I think we're just making stuff up at that
Yeah,
point.
we're just making
And
some. But
he's
to be
more
fair,
related to the people in the kingdom of science than
yeah.
any.
But anyway, I will say one of my favorite Xenu moments is mm, there is oh yeah, there's two moments that really stick out to me. It's the moment when they're in South America and they're making the rubber, and then Gen literally hands a knife over to Xenu. It's like, will you help us out, Xenu? And Xenu's just again like, why would I help you out? And Gen just using his manipulative silver tongue to get Xenu to work with them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but one of my other favorite moments is no, there's oh boy, oh my god, this is like the power of Xenu as well. So there's two other moments. The other moment
Okay.
is when Xenu finds out like, Senku's the guy. It's Senku, and Stanley has Senku in sniper shot, and he's asking like, shall I shoot now? And Xenu's like having that moral conflicting debate with himself about like what's morally right at this point, and he's thinking like, if I don't get rid of Senku, we're not going to see eye to eye. And you can tell he doesn't want to do that, but he's like, no, I've got to stick with my principles. So uh, with a heavy heart, he basically tells Stanley to shoot Senku. Yeah,
Yeah.
and also my final moment with Xenu is when they're on the boat and Xenu and Seiko are starting to have a conversation with each other, and he's just there like, okay, it's gonna be mentory and mentor working together at long last, and then you see Chrome coming in, and Chrome's like just wondering like the most awful thing that's happening here, and you just see both Senku and Xenu just blowing bubbles together.
Yeah, and then Kohaku saw them all blowing bubbles later. But I
Yeah, and then
did
just
like them that conversation they had because they basically explained a lot about how the petrification device works. And
hmm
I also like their analogy of like ghosts and how like scientifically, if ghosts were real, all the cool stuff we could do.
hmm
Yep.
yeah,
So yeah, that's Xena.
yeah. So I'll put.
Yo.
Oh, yo, 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 yo.
So I mean, his main thing, this corrupt cop, is like to be the guy who handles like our guns. But even that becomes kind of irrelevant pretty
Yeah,
much later.
I mean, he's literally the one that was taking a leak when he got petrified, which I've got to say is pretty funny, but also kind of disturbing if you really think about it. With some of these people that get turned to stone, it's like so say like somebody is giving birth. So like is the baby and the doctor holding it and the woman just um petrified together for all eternity in that pose.
Mm. So, I mean, the other thing is that that's so an eye patch of his that's not even just like something that stuck to him. He just
No,
likes
no.
having a cool eye
He
patch.
he just likes having the cool eye patch. But yeah, Yo as a character, he's kind of like I don't hate him, but at the same time, I'm not particularly fond of him because
Yeah,
he's there to be like more comic relief centric than anything else.
yeah. He basically just became a comedy duo with Magma.
Yeah, but I will say he does have he does have his good moments, and I would say my favorite moment with him is when he's the one that actually shoots Ibarra through the hand, and
Yeah,
he finally gets to say like, "You have the right to remain silent." And he's trying to remember like, "You do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defense."
the
Something related with
Miranda
Iron
rights. Yeah,
Courts,
which
and
is
he's like,
I'm not sure if that's a thing in Japan, but I guess it is.
"It, uh, it might be just a variation of it,
Because in
but
America, that's just like the fifth and like sixth amendments of the
yeah,
Constitution.
yeah." And in England, that's basically like when an officer arrests you, like you do not have to say anything, but you may harm your defense if you do not mention something you relate rely on in the court. Anything you do say may be given in evidence.
Interesting. You guys got that too.
Yeah,
Okay. So anyway, for Yo, yeah, I mean it's weird to like where to put him. Like he has like his moments, and I guess he's probably more important than the Americans and the mangaka we put.
yeah,
Even though I
yeah,
would like to turn him to Stone for Life because he did some very bad things.
yeah. He
I
did.
guess he did enough important stuff that he's revival worthy.
I
Like we would
mean,
put him next to Magma, I guess.
yeah, I guess we could put him at Smag, but I mean, he. I mean, he was revived specifically for being like you're the one who can sort of use firearms.
Yeah, at that point in time, but he's not important after that at all.
No, no. Um, And I mean, he does. I mean, he does have a cool design. I mean,
Yeah, true.
he's got orange hair, so that counts for something.
So next, Usuria.
Yuzuria and her indestructible headband, and I will not get over that headband. That headband has just driven me insane since the series. You know it. Everyone who knows me knows it. Like just trying to work out the statistics of this. Like, how has that headband survived all these years?
Yeah, I mean, I remember you always bring it up in your theories.
Like, is it just mate? Because yeah, you remember like the color page when you see petrified for the second time for I guess the third time when they're in like North America, you just see like even the headband is petrified.
Yep, and we were like, "What is that stuff made of?" Because it's human
Yes,
bones.
yes. Okay, but usually at first I was just like at first I was just like, oh, is she just gonna be like the love interest for the sake of being the love interest? But when she like comes back later on in the series and you actually start to see like more of her personality, I was just like, okay, yeah, I kind of really liking her now. Because one of my particular moments is when is after the whole Sukasa incident, and they're trying to like build the ship, and you have a built making all the cloth, and then she's just there like, I'd love to make clothes, and you just see her go berserker mode making crafting clothes, and just like,
Yeah,
where did this
practicing.
come from?
I mean, it makes sense. She just like really enjoys making stuff. And anyway, my thing with Yuzuriya, and this is my, I guess, hot take for the video, is she's like the most underrated character, I would say, in the whole series. Because Yuzuriya, well, much like Taiju was kind of pushed off to the side, like has like an incredibly important role in everything that kind of goes unnoticed because she makes
Oh,
like everyone's clothes. She what? Oh,
I was just gonna
Vex.
say
Hey,
Vex is here. Yeah. Also, Vex, I'm sorry, but I did something that I instantly regretted, and it involves you earlier on in the video.
uh, you you already apologized to him earlier in the video, but I would like to point out that I'm the one who pointed it out
Yes,
from the
yes,
get.
yes. So I'm
It's
sorry,
fine.
Vex. I'm sorry, Vex.
Anyway, if you want to know what that's about without watching, you can message us later. Anyway, so with Yuzuriya, so she makes everyone's clothes. She repairs the statues, which basically like unkills the people that Tsukasa like broke. And she's very important in terms of like bringing those people back, but also like when they brought Ryusui back and he brought capitalism with him,
Yes.
Yuzuriya, with her fashion sense, was able to kind of like revitalize the economy and like get Senku like the cash he needed. And so, in my viewpoint, she is like Ryusui is like probably like the wealthiest like person within the stone world. Yuzuriya is probably at least the richest woman. That
Yeah,
is
she.
my take on the story
Oh,
because
absolutely.
she is definitely well compensated. So Taiju doesn't have to work for the rest of his life.
No, he doesn't. But yeah,
I'm fine with it.
it's kind of funny that they did that because Ryusui made all the currency, gave it to Senku, and then uh, and then um uh, and then Ryusui kind of bought it all back, which gave it all. It was kind of like a back and forth with all the money. So it's kind of like, oh, I'm gonna make the money. Oh, we're gonna take the money from you, but we're gonna give it back to you to make the oil to get the oil.
And I mean, the other thing I really like about Yuzuriya, besides being part of like the OG trio, is like her relationship with Taiju. I really just like how like very wholesome it is, like even from the very beginning. And like Taiju himself, and this is kind of when I talked to it with Taiju, but I also wanted us to keep like going with the characters. Was I really liked when he was like, I don't want to confess to you till after we bring everybody back, because if he confessed at that time, he felt she would be kind of trapped with him because there's not enough like there's no society to really run away to or be separated from, so they wouldn't have. If she didn't feel the same way, it would have been awkward. And I kind
Yeah,
of respect that, even though it was very obvious they had mutual affection. And
yeah,
one of the
yeah.
only times, except for maybe other than Blue Box, where a character not confessing to their love interest actually made sense.
Yeah, yeah, and even Senku like in the before the petrification, when everyone was betting like, oh, I bet $10, I bet 100 100 yen. Senku's just like, oh, I bet 1,000 yen that she's into him because Senku knows those that Senku knew them both, so he kind. I like to think that like at one point Yuzuriya went up to Senku, probably when because this is one of my I'll bring it up here because this is one of my favorite Yuzuriya moments. Is just when they're on the ship and Yuzuriya wants to know like how the ship works, and then Nikki and everyone's just worrying like, oh no, you're gonna have your head explode through all the facts, and she's just there like, no, I spent 5 hours listening to Senku's lecture on rockets, and you just see
Yeah.
it like when Taiju's asleep. But this is what I was getting at, is that I like to think that during that moment when Taiju's asleep, she said, "Okay, can we take a break for a minute, Senku? Because I have to ask you something here. Um, what does Taiju actually like?" And Senku will be like, probably like, "What brought this up?" And she's just there like, "No reason," and she's pushing it. It's just like, and he's just there like, oh, if you're gonna act like this, it's not very scientifically accurate to be like that. Just tell him how you feel.
Yeah. And I think that Senku and Yuzuriya actually probably had like a really good friendship too. Just because like when Yuzuriya like was being threatened by Tsukasa, like she was ready to like lay down her life, like if Senku could survive. And then Senku was willing to like let Tsukasa just kill him just to spare Yuzuriya. And I
Yeah,
remember Tsukasa saying, it's like, did you not decide to just bury Yuzuriya's statue out of consideration for Taiju, or was it for her? Or both. And I think it's also partially for himself. I think he just really cares about her, even
yeah.
if he doesn't
Well,
say it.
well, the fact, like I said, the fact that she once sat through a 5 hour lecture with Senko, I think that pretty much established, like, no, they are friends. Because if you're willing to sit through someone's 5 hour lecture, then at that point you have respect for them.
Yeah, for sure. And I do think that's why the OG trio should have had like more time together. But again, that's just my take. And I feel like in an if someone wrote like an alternate version of Doctor Stone where Tsukasa didn't go completely crazy, we could have honestly had some of that at the beginning. I've
Yeah.
kind of had that idea in my head, but then that's a story for another time when I decide to become a fanfic writer.
Well, if you do, I'll read it. I'll
Well, I
definitely read
appreciate
it.
that thought.
Yeah.
I still have to
Um,
read like Chelsea's, like the mutual we were talking about earlier. Like I think she sent me some of her stuff. I still haven't read that, even though she sent me it so long ago. I just kind of lost track. I should
yeah.
read her stuff
Yeah.
finally. But anyway,
Um,
where to place her is the question, because again, in my opinion, she's one of the most underrated characters
you know
in the
what?
story, if not
You
the.
know.
But
You know what?
go ahead.
I would agree. Like, she deserves to be. I would say this is elegant. Like, she deserves to be up there.
Yeah, for sure. At the very least.
Yeah. And I'll put an next to Taiju because of the fact that they eventually do get together.
Yeah, that's nice. So yeah, I think that's a good place for her. And I do think both Taiju and her could have been there higher if they would just had a bit more screen time. And you could say that for most of these characters in that second tier, like if we had like more time with Nikki in America or Ukio and his backstory, Sukasa in the later parts of the story. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, now on to the final person who at first wasn't included in this list, but I decided to include them just because of the fact that they got joined the party. So like I was adamant, like, no, they deserve to be here.
I mean,
Amaryllis.
personally, I don't know if I agree with that, but sure. And the only reason I don't is just because she didn't really come with us on the boat like Mose and Kirasame
Well,
did.
here's the thing. Here's the thing. Neither did Sinu and Stanley, and yet they're still considered part of the Kingdom of Science.
Yeah, because they joined up with the team like after we
So
revived them.
so did
But like
Amaryllis.
Mo,
She joined up with the team after they got to Treasure Island.
sure, but it was also like with Soyuz, for example, he was there like when Senku formed the Kingdom of Science back in the mainland. Uh, and then like he became part of like the Treasure Island uh, when they got there later. But then
What?
Amaryllis just kind of was just like a character from Treasure Island. I guess like to put it another way, I'm not sure if there's a comparable character.
Well, here's the thing.
Um,
Here's the thing. If we include Leonard Maxwell, who
yeah,
basically
I mean,
tribute, like, we have to have Amaryllis.
I feel like with those characters, you could say technically that the Americans highlighted them, but you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the only other comparable character is another Treasure Island character, like that one warrior who I forget the
Yeah,
name
but
of.
I don't think I don't think he really did much to be placed here. But with Amaryllis, I did like the role that she played in Treasure Island, like being one of the only people who's actually willing to be like, no, what Ibarra is doing is absolutely horrible, and I'm gonna try and do something about it.
And I'm not usually a huge fan of this like archetype that she plays, but I did like her general story, and her like goals, because it's kind of like this is like the person who probably would have tried to take down Ibarra if we didn't show up. So that's kind of nice.
Yeah, I
Um,
also as well. I did like. I feel I love. And this is probably my favorite Amaryllis moment is when she's trying to flirt with Senku, but of course, as we all know, Senku has no sex drive, so she's just there like, why isn't this working on me on this guy?
Yeah, that was hilarious. And I also always remember like Gen trying to like have her seduce him as well, because again, people like weirdly like to ship Gen with other dudes, but
Yeah,
he's very much into women.
everyone, again is shipped with everyone, pretty much in in this series. But
Yep.
by the way, there's something else that I forgot to mention with Yo. He's one of the only people to actually react to Suika after she's aged up, which is kind of weird because you think other people, particularly in Ishigami Village, would be like, when did Suika get so tall?
Wait, what?
No, no. I was just looking at Yo just quickly, and he's one of the only few people to properly react to Suika being grown up.
Oh yeah, that is true. Yeah, I kind of forgot, but you're right. It
Yeah.
was weird that because so I'm gonna bring this up briefly. I think a lot of people at the time like were kind of like curious that like nobody like talked to Suika about her time alone. And I don't think it was necessarily a huge deal, but I kind of think it would have been nice for the characters to kind of go over their trauma. But I am also glad the fan base didn't overblow it out of proportion, because I've had other series where traumatic things happen and the characters don't like really respond to the trauma. And at least in those series, I would think to myself, it's like, okay, yeah, well, they're not going to respond to trauma. This is a series, it's a dark series where bad stuff happens constantly. This is nothing new. But in Doctor Stone, I think it would have been nice because they were all gunned down.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so yeah, that's just something I wanted to bring up quickly because before we finish it. But yeah, going back to Amaryllis, like I said, she did play the part that she needed to do in Treasure Island, and honestly, it was nice that we did get an ally right off the bat rather than them
Yeah.
having to, because it would have been like I would say it would have been a very very easy to just repeat what they did what they did in Ishigami Village with having Suika go and infiltrate one of the villages to get an ally on their side. But it was nice that they actually came into contact with someone very early on in the arc.
Yeah, I will agree. I had a good inside information, and she was getting them the clothes and resources they need. She was also clever in her own way. Again, not really my favorite type of character, but she was pretty good for what she was.
Yeah. I,
Um,
but
but
one thing
again, she only existed within Treasure Island. She never even left the place.
no, she didn't, which is a shame because it would have been fun to see her just go to Ishigami Village. It would have been fun, yeah, to actually see someone from Treasure Island to find out where the branch of the island actually ended up at.
It would, yeah. I mean, there's a lot they could do there, and I think like with Matsukaze, it's a character that could have taught us more about like this civilization that they were at. Because like obviously Soyuz doesn't remember anything; he was a baby.
Mhm.
But Amaryllis and Matsukaze, and even like Mose and Kirasama, I guess you could say, like they could have given us a little more insight to what life was like outside of the creepy stuff Ibarra was doing, and like maybe time before Ibarra as well, when they were probably younger. There was a lot they could have done with that, but yeah, it didn't.
Yeah. Um, and I will say one other thing that I wish was included in the anime was after they made the whole poop with the lab, you see Kohaku and Amaryllis just holding their noses, just giving like the most disgusting looks ever. I kind of wish they included that in the anime.
So as for where to rank her, I mean, we're not gonna put her in the Married to Ibarra.
We're gonna put her in the very top pie jams. We're gonna do that. No,
We're
no,
gonna
you
do
know,
what?
we're gonna put her in the very top. She's above Senku 100%. No,
No.
no, I'm just
uh,
kidding. I'm just kidding.
I think, I mean, I think maybe revival worthy is where I would put her, because much like
Yeah.
Homura, I think she served an important part in a very specific part of the story. And actually, I guess Magma and Yo did that well, where they kind of had like a very important role in like as part of the story, but then they were basically irrelevant. And that's kind of what happened with Kirasami.
Yeah. yeah, I would say that as well. So I agree, revival worthy. And with that, uh, we are officially done with the Doctor Stone tier list.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Over,
Um,
yeah. Overall, I think this is a pretty solid batch of where we've ended them up at.
yeah, and I would like to point out that this was almost 2 hours, so I'm glad we cut off last time.
Yeah, I'm glad because I knew like it would probably take us around this time to talk about all the other characters that we had left.
Yep. So yeah, I guess we should sign out. I have
Yeah,
to
so
get a couple things done now. Anyhow.
yeah, and I have to get a couple of things done. So yeah, hope everyone who tunes in for this when you look at it back, hope you enjoy it. And with that, peace.